So this is for Jen Davis again. This was from earlier in the week when I taught a lesson. Mr. Ron was kind enough to videotape it for me, so he was operating the camera.
It's all me. You can blame me for that.
No, it looked like it worked out fine. But what I wanted to talk about was just, and Mr. Ron and I had already discussed it a little bit, was just how more comfortable I've felt now being, this is the 12th week, with students. And we had a few new students with a new trimester over the last couple weeks, but the vast majority of the students I've seen since day one when I started back in week one. And I just thought everything just seems to flow a little more smoothly. Like we talked about, like I said, I know the students, I know who they are, I know all their names at the very least, and most of them I know at least a little bit about, and a good number of them I've talked with quite a bit.
Yeah. It's a people business. You're not running a factory and opening up people's skulls. And they're all people trying to figure out who they are. They all bring a different set of skills, different motivation, different levels of resistance and acceptance. And it's not about, it is about knowledge fundamentally, but it's about interacting with them as people. If you can get, I had a college professor one time who told me that if you reach the point where the student is afraid to let you down, they're worried about letting you down, you got to pay. You're not going to get to that point unless they feel that, number one, you're optimistic and enjoying yourself, and number two, that you care about it. It's always, the idea of student engagement is huge. It's huge. If it wasn't for that, then we might as well be clicking a mouse on a computer button for learning. But to me, that's self-obvious and it's second best. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I think that you've accomplished a lot in a dozen weeks. You're much more comfortable in front of a class now. I think that your skills are developing that way. But it takes actually, I think I took 2-3 years to get to the point where I consider myself to be effective, and I'm still modifying what I do on a daily basis. It's the ability to monitor and adjust in a given situation is really what makes you effective. Grab that teachable moment. Somebody says something, and even if that moment is just to get a laugh, they're learning something from you. They're learning something about who you are and about what it takes to be, number one, successful, and number two, to have an attitude about what it is that you're doing. What's the priority? What's the place of what I'm doing? And it's more than just a red pen on a test.
Yeah. Well, and I think from even just from my time substitute teaching, I think that I've seen that as probably, if not my biggest strength, right up there too, is the ability to kind of adjust things a little bit. And even as a sub, like I said, if I subbed for a math teacher and they left me a lesson, I could tell from one period to the next, if it was the same class, that I got a little bit better at it just because I'd done it before, and I even changed it a little bit based off something the student said or did, or something like that.
I've noticed the same thing. Another thing, I don't know if this will show up if you compare your earlier videotapes to the later ones, but you're a lot more mobile. You're around the room more, even when you're just delivering a lesson. I've tried myself to avoid being a podium kind of guy. To get up, move around a little bit, be a little energetic, and not only does it help to hold their attention, but again, there's that idea of hey, if this guy likes it, if he's enthusiastic about it, maybe there's something there. People who teach from behind a desk or from behind a podium, maybe there's a place for that, but I don't think the place is in a K-12 classroom.
Yeah, right. Well, I think that's one of the best things I've learned from watching you two being in your classroom when you taught was how energetic, how much enthusiasm you bring to it. I've heard you say many times, if you can't get excited about it, how do you expect the students to?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And you notice how yesterday, for example, I started out the class, here's where we were, here's what we're doing now and why we're doing it, here's where we're going to be 2 weeks from now, and where you're going to be next year. I think all of those things, again, you're working with people. They need to know what's out there. I tell them, I'm planting empty file folders on their desktops.
Yeah.
Put stuff in there, as well as access the other stuff that they had before.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I think that, yeah, I think that in the last 12 weeks you've come a long way. I think in the years to come in this profession, you'll probably look back on it and you'll say, like I did, boy, was I a jerk. It wasn't very, I had a tough time with my student teaching, you know, and I learned a lot. It's kind of the learning curve, very, very steep to begin with. And after a while, as you figure out what works and what doesn't work, and you figure out that it's okay to make a mistake, you know. A venerable old teacher that I worked with for a long while when I worried when I was early in my career asked me, he said, well, here's what I want you to do. Think back to your worst day in junior high school. I said, I can't think back that far. He said, yeah. You know, so it's not a situation where, you know, things are made or broken on the moment, generally. It's something that you build over time, that level of trust with students, level of engagement with students, and it's what it's all about. It's work.
yeah, yeah. Well, and like you said, I think you figure that out. I mean, a bad teacher, if you're not a very effective teacher, I guess you would try something and it wouldn't work, and you keep trying.
You keep doing it harder. Yeah, yeah. The beatings will continue until yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do some things I know occasionally that don't work, and I'll come back the next day and do the best I can to try to fix them. It's,
Yeah.
You know, this is
Well,
an art.
Yeah.
It's not a science.
Yeah, you want to be flexible enough to maybe try it again in a different setting. Like I said, just because
Yep.
it didn't work with
Yep.
one group of students, it might work. with
The
others.
great thing is when it works and you don't write it down. And
Yeah.
and I'm probably not the best at doing that.
Yeah. So, okay.
Cool.
Like
This has been a good time.
Yeah,
I gotta
I've
go back
enjoyed
to
it too.
working for a living.